7 o'clock. Welcome everybody to tonight's Town Council meeting. It is June 26, 2017. Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda, public comment. Mr. Bear.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mike Benzema.
Mike Benzema, Vice Chairman of the New Milford Sewer Commission. I'm here tonight to point out an error in the revised agenda for tonight's meeting. The original agenda listed my seat as expired, having a term that ended in 2015 due to the corrections made when the terms granted by the Town Council were recently found in error. The current agenda changed to showing my seat vacant. This is not the case. I have not resigned from the commission, and I'm currently still serving on the commission until the Town Council votes to replace me or the mayor extends my term. For my seat to be vacant, I would have officially need to resign from the commission. I have not done so, and I do not plan to do so. Tonight, you will not be voting to fill a vacant seat on the commission. You will be voting to remove someone with decades of wastewater engineering experience and appointing a new person in my place. And on another issue, since I'm still the vice chairman of the sewer commission, I would like to point out that Pettibone has not paid any connection fees yet. That will need to be budgeted for payment when final plans are submitted to the sewer commission. We can't determine the connection fees at this point until we know who the full tenant list is provided to the sewer commission. The property also has a commercial kitchen that may need that will need a grease trap if it doesn't already have one in there. That's it.
Thank you, Mike. Jack, you move right.
Hi. It's been a while since I've been here. I just wanted to get a little bit of clarification for something that I think occurred at the last meeting, and that would be the forensic vehicle for the police. I was wondering what the reasons were why it wasn't approved. If anybody could give clarity to that, that would be great. Okay. The other thing would be the Pettibone School project and the funding issues that keep going back and forth. I don't know what's delaying it, because it's a good facility. It's a good solution for a lot of things. You know, the East Street solution was, you know, ridiculous, and it seems like every time we go ahead and do something, something comes along to make it more difficult. And I'm going to say it again. We're above that. We should be able to look at things in terms of our town and what our children need and what we need for health care and all the other things, how we can help out and come together to be a beautiful town, because it's getting cuter every day. And so we should really, I mean, the river project is adorable. You know, it's got all that going for it. If everybody worked together, you know, it would be a really good thing. And the Pettibone thing is just another one of those examples where we can't let go of our party, and that's not showing up really good all the way up the ladder. So let's not copy that and try and do the best for our town. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Gail Shannon, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. You all know I'm the chairman of the Board of Finance, but I appear here as a citizen tonight. I'd like to speak in support of the John Pettibone project. I hope you will do all you can to facilitate its advancement and completion. I know there are some differences of opinion in town relative to programming that might be there, but one thing I do know about facilities like this is that the facilities tend to endure, and yet the programs tend to change as years go by and needs change. But the need for the facility doesn't. If it had been up to me, Pettibone School would still be with the schools, and we would have refurbished that and be rotating schools, so we'd have up-to-date schools, but that time has come and gone. I don't believe in wasting resources, and to let that building sit there and that property sit there and not be put to good use for the citizens would be a waste. So I applaud the efforts that have taken part so far to get it into usable condition, and I urge you to, like I said, facilitate that and post haste and get it done so that we can use it in good shape. And I think it was a very good decision to hang on to that key piece of property, because certainly had we gotten rid of it, who knows what we're going to need in the future, and properties in that area would be way beyond what we'd want to pay when we finally came to that point. So I applaud you for keeping hold of it. I applaud you for upgrading it. Let's get it online so we can do some good things. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Heidi Edel.
Good evening. I just wanted to speak on behalf as well of the Pettibone School project because I think it's a great idea. I think when I read about the youth agency moving there, that makes a lot of sense to me for them to have basketball courts inside the school. There's just a lot of things the school has that it just makes a lot of sense to me. I think I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of families with children, especially younger children, people I've reached out to today, in saying that a lot of people voted for Mayor Grombeck with the idea that this is something that was going to happen, so I'd really like to urge you to move it forward. I really truly believe that the value of the property, whatever we could sell that for, would be X, but the value to the community in the long term is much greater than that. Thank you.
Can I get your last name? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Edel, E-D-E-L.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Megan Lyon.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm speaking to you guys on behalf of, as a resident on Old Grove Street.
Just give us your name, your address, please.
Sorry. Meg Lyon, 9 Old Grove Street in Milford. And first, I apologize for not being present with Mr. Towson. Last meeting, I was in the middle of a law school exam, so I much rather would have been here. But I wanted to just take the time to voice my opinion in support of Mr. Towson and all of my fellow neighbors in this regard. And the overall purpose of a local government is to implement its rules and regulations for the furtherance of the public's best interest and benefit. The New Milford Traffic Authority believed that they were doing just so when they implemented and installed the no parking signs on Old Grove Street following the request and complaints of a resident, Ms. Johnson. They felt for her and feared for her hypothetical that should she need access to emergency care, emergency vehicles would not be able to have access to her home because there were all these cars that were parked and blocking her road. At that moment, the public interest was clear: to preserve access to the elderly in case of an emergency. What the New Milford Traffic Authority did not realize at the time, however, was that this important and seemingly innocent public interest was merely a mask to further implement Ms. Johnson's harassment of all her neighbors. I know Mr. Towson has spoken about this last meeting in depth and detail, but please hear it from another source, so this harassment is as persistent and continuous as he claimed. After all, the people that are harmed by the recent Ms. Johnson-inspired no parking signs are visiting aides who are attending to the ill, landscapers who are doing their jobs, and grandparents who are coming to meet and greet their grandkids. Every resident on Old Grove Street, other than Ms. Johnson, of course, have come before the New Milford Transit Authority asking for the removal of these signs. We as a community have even gotten together and offered up potential compromises, all to no avail. Despite their good wishes, the New Milford Traffic Authority's decision to keep the signs have become a burden to all of our neighbors and those that we depend on. This is a perfect example of the people expressing their will to their local government. We are speaking to you today, and I know you will decide today, and merely ask that you weigh the interest benefits that are present. It's a hypothetical situation used to further one's interest in harassing her neighbors against that of every single other resident on the road who find these signs burdensome and, just as Ms. Johnson intended, harassing. Please vote today to remove these signs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Megan. Michael Barnes, please.
Michael Barnes, 17 Sullivan Farm. Everyone in town would love it if we had a beautiful community center like the one Newtown has built. Newtown's first selectman didn't dictate to residents what they would build. Newtown created a committee that actually asked the members of the community what they wanted in a community center. Our mayor didn't seat the committee created to determine the best use for the Pettibone property. When asked about it, he stated, "I am the committee." Newtown took resident survey results and hired professionals to develop a preliminary plan and a pro forma budget to present to residents. Our mayor provided no plan or estimates for work on this project. Our mayor waited until the Pettibone committee expired and our town budget was approved before announcing his plan to move town agencies and nonprofits into Pettibone. He provided no pro forma budget. In fact, there were no estimates at all what such a project would cost or where the money would come from, other than Councilman Chamberlain stating it would be much less than $100,000. Newtown held a referendum to approve spending money for a community center. Imagine that. They actually let voters decide whether their money should be spent on the project. Our voters are in the dark as there is still no overall plan or budget for this project. Newtown then developed a master plan. Our mayor presented a highlighted 27-year-old blueprint of the school to the town council indicating where he wanted to put municipal offices. What made it a community center? Well, the old school has a gym and a library. Does Newtown's community center exist primarily as a municipal office building? Newtown had professional engineers create a pre-construction plan with budget estimates to present to residents. What did our mayor do? Fearing the Board of Finance would not approve this project without construction plans or a budget, he had his director of finance issue a paper stating he could appropriate all the money he wanted from the landfill settlement fund without supplemental approval. Newtown didn't spend any money on the property, but held multiple design reviews for input, refining the proposal to resident needs. What did our mayor do? No need for feedback for a committee of one. Instead, our mayor had town agencies draw up their own estimates for work and then requested the town council approve $225,000 from the landfill settlement fund for the work. Numerous residents objected that amount did not represent all the work needed and that a municipal office building was not an appropriate use of landfill settlement funds. But the council approved it anyway. As predicted, the Board of Finance turned down the supplemental appropriation of landfill settlement funds, but the mayor ignored the decision and spent the money anyway. Newtown hasn't broke ground on their project yet because they are waiting for zoning approval before starting. Our mayor started dumping thousands of man hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars into this project without any zoning approval. When zoning did start getting project information from the mayor, it is in the form of phases, so he doesn't have to do the work to meet zoning prerequisites before occupying the building. Can you imagine if we let someone establish a precedent and let every developer occupy their building before complying with regulations? One huge item left to a later phase is sidewalks. The mayor campaigned stating he couldn't understand why New Milford didn't have sidewalks from Bridge Street all the way down Route 7. Not only doesn't he want to put in a sidewalk for downtown social services clients to reach his office building, he won't even put a sidewalk where a pedestrian was killed right on Route 7 in front of Pettibone. This project is like the death of 1,000 cuts, and we haven't even gotten to the expensive stuff like boiler and roof replacement yet. I wonder what phase those will be in and how many millions will be into it by then. Thousands of man hours budgeted for other purposes have been diverted to this project. What were those personnel supposed to be doing that didn't get done last year? We have yet to hear where the $1.5 million in budget cuts will come. We have yet to hear about state funding cuts to our schools. Now residents are being hit up again for over $155,000 of replacement lights. How in the world is replacement lights primarily for a municipal office parking lot something that qualifies for a landfill settlement fund?
Mr. Barnes, you have a minute, please.
Newtown sets the standard for how to build a community center. New Milford, decide for yourself.
Thank you. Adriana Ricchio.
Good evening, Adriana Ricchio, 72 Chernisky Road. I always have to follow Mr. Barnes. I don't know why. It's something always happens. I'm sorry. So am I. I'm in favor of Pettibone. I have been from the beginning. I think it's a great idea. I have never seen so much objection to something that's going to be helpful to the community as this Pettibone building. And the same people turn out all the time. Maybe 6 of them who are opposed to it, but I have never heard a single idea from any one of them as to what they want to do with that building except knock it down and do what? Nobody's heard any ideas. So if they have ideas, they should come forward. Instead of complaining and comparing New Milford to Newtown, which is spending a lot of money. And we live in a town where nobody ever wants to pay tax. So I just don't see the validity of Mr. Barnes's argument. But I do see the validity in spending $155,000 or so, whatever it was, for the lighting so we can get this project going, especially because it's coming out of Waste Management Fund and the turf field is not being financed by Waste Management Fund. So just so we have the record clear, a lot of people were led to believe that it is, and it's not coming out of Waste Management. So spend the money on the lighting, and let's get it moving. It's great for people. People need it, and we should stop fighting over it. It's for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Stephen Looney.
Good evening, Steve Looney, 55 Ford Ash Road in the Milford. I'm here because I noticed in the town agenda a couple days ago that there are a couple of inaccuracies. The first gentleman who spoke tonight, Mr. Benjamin, clearly stated that he has not resigned from the Sewer Commission, nor has he been asked to step down by the Sewer Commission. Yet in item number 5, appointments of boards and commissions, the gentleman will fill the seat vacated by Mr. Benjamin. So what does that mean? It's vacant or it's not? We pushing them out, or are we going to encourage community support? We're going to encourage people to step up and volunteer. I don't know the gentleman from Adam. I've met him at, I think, 4, maybe 5 sewer plant meetings, which I've attended, which, outside of Mr. Chamberlain and Mr. Bass, I've been at more sewer plant meetings than the rest of the people at the table. I'm not even invited, and I still show up. Another item that I see is number 7, because I also attend zoning meetings. And I did call the town's attorney today. They never did get back to me, which concerned me because I figured as a taxpayer they actually worked for me. But Kramer and Anderson never returned my call. Here in number 7 on the John Pettibone item, it says, as a condition of a permit, the commission is requiring the additional lighting be installed in the parking lot and walkway areas. Factually incorrect. I'll be polite, I'll say factually incorrect. I could say at a minimum misleading, at the most a blatant lie on print. The disbursement will satisfy zoning's condition and allow our Parks and Rec youth agency departments to move into the building. Factually incorrect, at least misleading, at worst another lie. Zoning's meeting tomorrow night. The public meeting is still ongoing. Yes, they actually take public input while making a decision. There are other items on the Pettibone list that aren't addressed here, which could still stall the community center. I'm all for a community center. I just not am for the way this is being nickeled and dimed. And, you know, some people can sit back and smirk at me on town council. Believe me, I've been to sewer meetings where a member of the sewer commission has called me a communist. So please, you can sit back and smirk all you want. But what I will say is that there is also $500,000 worth of upgrades to the parking lot that the mayor applied for through a state grant. If we didn't need them, why did we apply for them? If we don't need them that badly, why did we supersede the bridge that is up for discussion further down on our agenda tonight to form a committee? We're going to form a committee as to how to walk back and forth across a bridge from one parking lot to another, but we couldn't form a committee on JPS. Okay? Fair enough. There's also the widening of the driveway around JPS, which will take 5 feet. I'll give you a little detail because I've been there. So it's 5 feet going around the left side of the building. I don't see any money in any budget for this. I did see an article on social media, I guess, which shows that we only spent $164,000 of the $225 allotted. So why are we asking for $155 for lighting? Where's the other $61,000 going? what is it allotted for? Why isn't it being put towards the so-called lighting we need to put in? Have we gotten 3 estimates from lighting contractors? Are we just giving it to the lighting contractors that are in there? Have the gentlemen that are from Greenscape who are doing an energy audit on the building, have we heard from them? Have they chimed in about the parking, lighting, and energy efficiency and how that may affect the program, which actually they were supposed to present to us last month at the meeting? No show, not on the agenda again. Now, hopefully June 11th, we'll hear back from them. Seem to be in a big rush to move into a building that doesn't have air conditioning. Has a bad roof. We can go back to JPS being 225, which at the time was 75,000 square feet, which was $3 a square foot. So I'll be kind, I'll back out the 15,000 that the Board of Ed didn't move into, so we're down to 60,000 square feet. We're at $3.75 a square foot. Is the 60,000 square foot finished? Doesn't seem like it to me. It seems like we got a gym and a couple of other areas going by zoning. We got a massive amount of undesignated storage space at JPS. Massive amount. We have one of our handicap bathrooms, which if we need to use it, we can get a key and go over there and use it, even though it doesn't and won't have a CO at the time. As a contractor in town, I'd like the same latitudes. Thank you.
Thank you. Douglas Scully, please.
Hi, Doug Skelly, 4 Birchwood Lane. I'd like to address an article that was written in the Spectrum last week about the turf field. As many of you know, I've been around for a few years with turf, and back in September of 2014, the Town Council approved a subcommittee to do some testing and stuff on the fields. The committee was made of members from the Town Council, Democratic, Republican. We had members from the POE. We had members from the community. And we formed it, and the Town Council approved to go forward. After doing all the testing and stuff, the Town Council went forward and approved the funding, and we got a $4 million vote and bond for it. So a turf committee was established. 99% of the same members were part of that committee. We had electricians, we had a lot of advice from the town council members. There were 3 of us, or 3 of you on the commission. So, having said that, we moved forward. We did a lot of meetings, as many of you know. We met dozens of times over the 2015. We met with the contractors, we looked at grass, we looked at infill. We did many, many meetings. Well, as political things changed, back in November of 2015, we had a new mayor. So the new mayor sat in this first meeting, December 9th. Came in, introduced himself, talked about some of the dirt at Pettibone. There was an issue of it being in the parking lot. We settled that and moved on. Things were going great. Talking with Luke McCoy, who was the head of BSC. We had meetings, several at the high school, senior center. Meetings were sometimes twice a month. And on a certain day, February 3rd, Mr. Chamberlain was the first public participation we ever had. Out of all the meetings, dozens. About 5 minutes later, a lady named Patricia Taylor showed up. She was from Environmental Human Health, watchdog group out of North Haven. She introduced herself, had a lot of paperwork, about an hour of talking about how dangerous things are, and this and that, and at the end we asked, well, how did you know about the meeting? She said, the mayor asked me to come. The mayor asked you to come. Well, how come the mayor didn't call us, talk to us? So, a couple days later, on February 8th, Luke McCoy calls me. He says, oh, by the way, we have a meeting with the mayor at 3:30 today. I said, no commission meeting today at 3:30. I said, well, let me talk to the chair, Pete Bass. Well, apparently the mayor had not contacted Pete Bass or anybody in the committee, but contacted Luke McCoy, wanted an informational meeting. Well, an informational meeting, you have a committee you can reach out to. It's right here. Well, apparently through the emails, around 3 o'clock, he emails Luke not to come. Luke says, I'm here. I just 2 hours in a snowstorm, I'm here. So I guess they meet. And now there's a lot of animosity going on, a lot of backdoor stuff going on. So now we have conflict with the turf and the crumb rubber infill. So we have a meeting at Saranova on February 10th. And we're looking at organic. We find out organic doesn't work in the Northeast environment. Coconut husks don't work. You have to keep it moist. You have to keep it hydrated. You have to water. We all know the story here. I've said this millions and millions of times before. So we actually had the contractor there that didn't even know the specifics of how to take care of it. I went on his own website and told him it needed to be taken care of every 2 years. He had stated every 5 years because he had not done that many. He had done 2 at the time in the United States, and they were in California. So, having said that, the mayor attended 3 meetings. February 17th, we had a water valve break. He attended that.
You have a minute, please.
Thank you. And that was the last time we saw the mayor. 3 meetings. 3 meetings he attended. So, in his letter, he states that he pushed for a warranty. Let me make it clear. The warranty, if he had asked us, was already in effect. It's no new warranty. How do I know that? I called Luke McCoy today. I called Alan Hubbard from Sprint Turf. We had already discussed it as a committee, that there's a warranty. We knew that. And the warranty states if the federal government ever found that crumb rubber was environmentally hazardous, they would remove it. We already knew that. So in a sense, the meeting meant nothing. The warranty was already in place. So having said that, all he had to do was reach out to us. The communication is the key. And for the Democratic page to reach out and publicly bash a member of this town council should be ashamed of itself. Ashamed, because we know how this was supposed to be funded. And at a recent town meeting, a couple of months ago, I asked the mayor, how is he going to fund it? He said a 10-year bond.
Your time is up, sir.
A 10-year bond. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey Linder.
Thank you, council members, and good evening. My name is Corey Linder. I'm from 88 Elm Street Extension here in New Milford. I want to thank everyone for the riverfront, actually. I moved here a couple of years ago, and it's just nice to be able to come over the bridge, and it's very nice and scenic, actually. The one point I'd like to make is I wanted to come out in favor of JPS and the additional funding it needs for the lights. Specifically, it seems like it's taken a lot of here and there to get JPS kind of accomplished, but it seems like that's okay because it is working out in the end. It is something that I think the taxpayers, or at least people I've spoken to, really want as a community center. I very much like maybe a committee to start looking into a much better, bigger, larger, more expensive community center, but I don't think that's really going to happen anytime soon. So having such a usable asset seems kind of like it's going to waste there, and for the small return on investment, I think it's a big deal to the taxpayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Cindy Davis.
15 Park Lane West, New Milford. Yes, obviously. Well, again, thank you. I think what you did for the riverfront is a great thing. I'm here because I support Pettibone. I know when the mayor was running, that was what we wanted to do. It's about supporting the community. It's really important. The last time I spoke, I was talking about civility and the need for having positive discourse. And again, I'm here now, and I'm hearing so much bickering, and it's very difficult to actually know what points are being made when there's all this, I don't know if the word is animosity, maybe it's animosity. The school is a community resource. Its purpose is to help the community, and I feel what we do for New Milford is to make it the most attractive, viable community it can be, and that's why we need to make sure that Pettibone happens. And this other stuff that's going on, I'm filled with a lot of negative feelings. I went to the zoning commission one day, and I heard information that was presented It was new to me. I know nothing about zoning. But again, I heard people bashing and negating what the good points were. And it has to stop. The bashing has to stop. Talk points, talk facts, but not the other, not the emotionality, because I can't understand it. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Cindy. Jeff Winter, please.
Good evening, Jeff Winter, 22 Morey Road. A lot of interesting items on the agenda tonight. One of the first ones, of course, is the funding of the community center at the former school, John Pettibone. I'm fully in favor of it. This community needs that. It's a perfect location, especially for a department like Park and Rec, next to the playground, the softball fields that are there, and as well as the fields if you want to call them for soccer, football, whatever. It's a nice synergy to have in the community, among other things. Second of all, it's still amazing that people don't understand basic finance. Basic finance regarding bonding and the use of the Waste Management Fund, all you have to do is either read about it, which is the most important thing, or listen to what others write about it. The decision to fund the turf fields with money other than waste management was done by Mayor Murphy and Mr. Jankowski, and that's documented multiple times, not only in articles in the local newspaper, but also in meeting minutes of the town council. Further, the town meeting, there have been multiple meetings leading up to it, but the town meeting where the people of New Milford chose to go down that path was done, I believe, 2 weeks prior to Mayor Gronbach being elected. So the people of the town voted to have that project bonded. Okay, it was not anybody else. In fact, though, there was an attempt by Councilman Bass to actually have the Waste Management Fund used. Mayor Murphy was not at a meeting. This is all on video. You can watch it. He sat in that chair and tried to make a motion to use the Waste Management Fund. He was cut off immediately by the finance director, who told him, this is not how we're doing it, and also your motion, the way you're presenting it, is not good. So that was shut down. And that should really be the end of the discussion, because again, the decision was made 2 weeks before the election by the people of the Milford. Lastly, the Sewer Commission, while I appreciate that Mr. Benzema's been on there for a while, his term is over. Just because you show up doesn't mean your term isn't over. And it was the attorney for the commission, and you can look going back to meeting minutes for the Sewer Commission going back to, I believe, February, where the attorney, Lori Scheisel, said she was looking into the situation to see what the term limits were. She found them out finally. It was clearly determined that that all members of the commission only served for 4 years, and 2 of them, their terms are already up. There is no argument about this. If you want to watch Seinfeld and see George Costanza just kind of show up at work, hoping that he'll get a paycheck and that they won't notice that he wasn't officially hired, that's kind of the deal. I mean, I could go in and sit down at the committee. I could sit right here if you guys wanted, but that doesn't mean I'm a member of the town council. So let's get serious about it. But most importantly, if you're going to serve on the Sewer Commission, you're not there to worry about testing the water. You leave that up to the professionals. Serving on the Sewer Commission is to make sure that it's financially well run, employees are taken care of, and that the town is taken first and foremost into consideration. And I just spoke with the current head of the Board of Finance, who's been on that board since 2002. Not once has there ever been a plan in place for the Sewer Commission to repay any portion of the debt. There has never been a plan. This mayor has tried to at least input a plan. People don't like that they're now beholden to a plan, but at least someone wants to put together a plan.
Mr. Winter, you have a minute.
Thank you. The fact that septage half the septic fees are going to go to this town to pay for the debt, was an agreement made by the town and the sewer commission. If we are now having problems with septic, I think we all know, and those of us who attended the meeting about 4 weeks ago, know that the problem is not because we're trying to generate revenue, it's because haulers from New York know that we're the cheapest thing in town. And the fact that the commissioners who have been serving on there for a long time didn't recognize that, and the attorney didn't recognize that, shows me that, frankly, the sewer commission is broken. These people don't do their work, they don't do their homework. The haulers told them that other towns have higher fees, and finally, last week it was implemented. It was implemented because the haulers know their business, and this commission does not. The sewer commission does not. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan McCauley, please.
Hi, good evening. Ryan McCauley, 193 Aspetuck Ridge Road, New Milford. I'm here to talk in favor of the community center at what used to be JPS School. And I'll tell you a story of why I moved to New Milford. I moved to New Milford in 2001, and I fell in love with New Milford. 2003, I bought a house here. And the reason why I fell in love with New Milford was I saw a commitment to community, especially a commitment to children. As a professional who has dedicated my life to working with children, I found that very important. I didn't have children at the time. I do now have a child who uses the youth agency program, and she uses the Parks and Rec program, and I've used the Parks and Rec program. And honestly, my daughter took a dance class with the Park and Rec program, Irish step dancing. It's really loud in the house. It was great. And it was a wonderful program. The instructor was wonderful, but it was done in the lobby of the Parks and Rec building. An awful place to have a dance lesson, honestly. And so I think, in my opinion, this town needs to do what it needs to do to get a community center that will have the space for our children, for the adults of the community, to have a recreation space, which the youth agency, Parks and Rec, can supply, and also an educational space where programs such as Robotics and Beyond, who have expressed interest in moving into that space, and the community culinary school have expressed interest in that space. And community centers are invaluable to communities because people move to communities because of programs. I moved to New Milford because of the commitment to the community. And a community center with, I don't know, a variety of options is appealing to people. And it can only raise the property value. And I'm concerned that a Pettibone gets used for more retail space or whatever the plan may be. It's not going to raise the property value because people aren't going to move to a community for a Walmart or for whatever may go in that space. We don't know. Nobody's actually talked about any other options for it. So I'm in favor of that, of it being a community center. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Greg Mullen, please.
Hi, Greg Mullen, 39 Middlewood Drive. And my primary reason here is actually to come out and support our sewer commissioner, but I will speak briefly about JPS. To probably many people's disbelief, this is not a political issue for me. This is about an issue about process. I don't want to repeat what other people have said already, but a community center maybe is a fantastic idea, but everybody in the community deserves input to that. They need to have, well, what do they want? Do they want a pool? What kind of programs do they want? How much is it going to cost? And we deserve to know what it's going to cost us as taxpayers. I did a lot of research on what other communities did. I'm not going to speak to Newtown again. That's a shining example of how things work well when there's committees put together and things are brought to the community. The library did it, the turf field committee did it, and even the sewer project was a community effort that included everybody, and the voters had a say in it. I'm hearing things that people say, well, there's been no ideas put on the table as to what it's used for. I think there have been a lot of ideas out there. I think maybe part of the problem is we're not listening to each other, right? That's the problem, right? Nobody's sitting down at the table together to talk to each other, right? It's always divided, and everybody's responsible, not just us, not just you. So I have plenty of ideas. My opinions are not as important as what the people's opinions are, and I don't think an election or an elected member is a license to do what you want without a broad input from across the community. Me personally, I think something to do with the elderly may be a great option for that. It's a direction that our country's going. It could provide income for us, which we so desperately need. They could either keep the building or tear it down. I don't know. It would give us a shot in the arm from revenue. It would certainly provide a tax base. It would give us jobs. And it wouldn't look like an ugly Walmart really close to our town. So I think there's plenty of options to talk about, but we're not discussing those options, and that's my problem. We're not really utilizing good government or good process. Now, I've been paying close attention to the sewer issue, and these are really, everybody's good. This is a non-political issue. I've been spending the last number of days reading minutes going back to 1998, and it was never a political issue. It was always about what's the right thing to do for the town. The sewer literally gives the taxpayers every dime they have. There's no mystery here. You could take away the capital reserve. It's a one-time fix like selling a building, but then we haven't solved any problems yet. Let's sit down at the table and solve the problems, because next year or two, somebody's going to have to deal with this issue. Now, the lawyer representing the commission did say that she felt that Mr. Bentham's term was through 11/30/17. She clearly stated that in the minutes. Mike Bensama, who again I don't really know. I can understand he upset a few people because he offered his opinions on the way he thinks things handled. But however, it doesn't overshadow his incredible, I think, about 7 years of public input and public service, and his expertise that actually saves this town thousands and thousands of dollars. There's no reason that Mr. Whitman can't fill an alternate seat. There's no reason Mr. Bensama can't hang out until 11/30/17. I think it's more than reasonable. I think it would be a good compromise. And, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And I guess it really bottoms down. I had a conversation with Mr. Chamberlain here at the beginning when we were arguing about things. And, the argument was, well, Mayor Murphy just dropped off the keys and we were on our own. And I said, well, why didn't you reach out across the table to the people that are at the table to embrace their expertise and their knowledge? And this is still not happening. That's what's broken about what's going on now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's the end of the list, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
You're welcome, sir.
We'll move on to item 3, approval of prior minutes.
Motion to approve the regular town council meeting minutes of 6/12/2017.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1 abstention, Ms. Richardson. 2 abstentions. There is a housekeeping matter, though. We do need to, did you get the email that Mary had sent to you?
I didn't get the chance to look at it, but I did get it, yeah.
Okay. On March 27th, 2017, we authorized the bands and the road bands and for some other projects, and we set a date for the town meeting. Now, we voted in favor of issuing those bans as well, but it wasn't reflected in the minutes. So I would just ask for an amendment to add to the minutes to reflect that there was a unanimous vote to not only set the town meeting for the bans, but also to authorize the bans. Fair enough, John?
Yeah, but you'd have to add that to your agenda, you need 2/3 vote of all those present tonight under FOIA.
Okay.
It's not on your agenda present.
Sure. So I entertain a motion to add that amendment to those minutes to the agenda.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. So with that being said, I'll entertain a motion to amend the May 27th minutes.
Okay, motion to amend the May 27, 2017 minutes in regard to the road bonds and...
All the balance.
Okay.
It was March 27th.
And that was the town meeting.
What are we amending? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The minutes for March 27th,
Right.
and then you can so move it. Let me just say it. So it'll be the...
I just didn't hear what Mary Jane said. It's
Sure.
unchanged.
So it's a motion to amend the March 27, 2017 minutes to include, to identify a motion not only setting the town meeting, but also authorizing the issuance of the bans.
So the motion wasn't in the minutes, you're saying?
It was made, it just didn't make it into the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
I second that.
Okay. So how about you got to
I'll
so
make a
move it?
motion.
Okay. So Scott to so move. Entertain a second.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Item 4, mayor's comments. We've got a lot on the agenda, but I'll address one of the issues. And I hate that we're still talking about crumb rubber, turf field. It's such a positive thing for the community. It came out beautifully. But I do have to set the record straight. There was an issue, you're right, when I took office, that was a concern that I'd raised even while it was running. The crumb rubber was basically ground up tires, that it was toxic material, that municipalities and states around the country were banning it, that even Connecticut was taking steps to look at this, and just recently was considering, I don't know if it passed, a moratorium on new crumb rubber fields. So there was a real problem with this issue. And yes, I brought it to the Turf Field Committee. I brought it to the consultants to address the issue of what are our alternatives. We got organic on one end and the crumb rubber on another, and trying to come up with some kind of compromise. And a lot of people were told as a result of those questions that I wanted to shut down the project. I mean, it was crazy because they'd already dug up the fields. I wasn't going to shut it down, but I did want to introduce this discussion topic and discuss a compromise. And eventually, after things settled down, and I did attend a number of meetings and a number of private meetings, we did come up with a compromise that was better than the crumb rubber. Encapsulated with this kind of acrylic material that was food grade. You could put it in your mouth. Excuse me, sir, I have the floor. I didn't interrupt you, did I? No, it's okay. It's a rhetorical question. Thank you. So it's encapsulated crumb rubber. So it's not that it was a little bit more expensive, but it was worth it because we did have assurances from the manufacturer that it wasn't going to leach into the ground and it wasn't going to get in our kids' bloodstreams. And so it was a good thing. We came together and agreed on that. And we negotiated a warranty for that product, which we didn't have before. There was nothing in writing. We actually had our town attorney negotiate that warranty. I can't take all the credit. But we did, and it was issued and it was signed. And I'm glad we did because there are additional concerns regarding crumb rubber and the environmental and health impacts that it has. So we got to a good place. The fields came out beautifully, but it's important to note the history of how we got there because it's an important lesson. So, moving on. That was item 3.
Mayor?
Yes.
While you're still under mayor's comments?
Yeah.
I was asked about the Vietnam Memorial Monument, July 15th.
Yes.
Could you maybe...
I was going to make an announcement. You're absolutely right, and we have a press release. So there is a... we are going to have, you saw at the prior meeting that we developed a Vietnam Veterans Memorial with the help of Ray Crawford, designed it, instrumental in getting it made. July 15th, it is scheduled for dedication on the green. The help of our Public Works Department to screw it in. We've gotten some donations from the people supplying the supplies and materials at Granite Place. I'll be issuing a certificate of thanks to them. So on July 15th, there will be a dedication. And it will be at 10 o'clock in the morning on the town green at the All Wars Memorial in front of the tank. So thank you for that reminder. It is a very positive thing. Okay, Let's move on to item 5, appointments to boards and committees. I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the appointment to the Sewer Commission of John F. Whitman III, unaffiliated, for the term 6/26/2017 to 11/30/2019.
Entertain a second. Mr. Chamberlain, second. I'm sorry, I just passed out John Whitman. It's a resume for John Whitman.
Yes, sir.
And he's currently serving on the Roads Committee. We appointed him to that. And you can see this guy's just got a great, amazing background. I mean, he worked as the manager for the New York Electric Gas Corporation, the utility. You know, working on huge projects, capital projects, maintenance, operations manager. This is an individual who knows management, and he's got an incredible background that's going to add to the Sewer Commission. Now, I appreciate Mr. Bensema's service, and he's right, he hasn't vacated it, but the term has expired. I think we've all agreed. We've had the town clerk issued a revised term period. She's the one that actually told me that the terms were improperly calculated before. The statute says 4 years, and for some reason it wasn't changed. The council was appointing people to 6 years. So she amended it. It was reviewed by council. They signed off on it. And we have a, for lack of a better word, expired term. Somebody's filling it. And the Sewer Commission, I'll say a couple more things, requires good management. I'd love to say that it's not, politics hasn't poisoned the well, but I can't say that. As Mr. Bensema stood here at public comments, he used his position as a Sewer Commission member to intimate that Pettibone would not be approved, that had never paid a connection fee, is going to need grease traps. Used his position to weigh in on a politically charged Pettibone project. And it's emblematic of what I've seen at the Sewer Commission over the past year. People just making it up as they go along. There are rules for when connection fees are required. There are rules for how new businesses are connected, and this school is connected to the sewer right now. And yet, his intimation, and he's looking directly at you, Mr. Bass, was that they should be required to pay what I've seen in my experience, a enormous connection fee, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's the biggest complaint I get from people that are dealing with the Sewer Commission. When the bank building was planned to become the amazing space that it is today, the amazing reception hall, the connection fee for them to hook up to the sewer was astronomical. Mr. Goldring would have just abandoned the project. And I hear it constantly. So there is a problem with the management of the Sewer Commission. I appreciate the service, but every commission needs new blood, new leadership, new experience, and Mr. Whitman offers that. And I think it's going to benefit the commission in the long run, which ultimately will benefit the town. So, Ms. Francis.
Question, because it was mentioned. So the attorney for the Sewer Commission, Lori Schiesel, right? She said in the minutes, at least that's what Mr. Bensema said, that the term was correct.
Yeah.
So where was the disconnect on that?
I don't know where Ms. Schiesel came up with that. It's not. It's a 4-year term, and we had our own town attorney review Noreen, our town clerk's recommendation. He agreed that the 4-year term was appropriate, and that somebody who's acted beyond that 4-year term is valid. Those decisions are people serve until they're replaced or until they resign, so that's fine. But the 4-year revision was the appropriate course. Mr. Bass.
Question to town attorney. Is this a town council appointment? It is a mayor's appointment with the approval of the town council under the ordinance that's section 2253. I appreciate Mr. Whitman wanting to come forward and serve the town. I think that's great. He has a wonderful resume. But I also would like to applaud Mr. Bensema. Mr. Bensema also has 7 years' experience in the field of wastewater treatment. He's a wastewater treatment engineer. He's also saved the commission, of which we're talking about dollars, numerous dollars, by helping out with the operations. We don't have a plant manager currently. We have someone right now that's just signing the permit process, as Town Councilman Chamberlain can attest to. So I think we need to continue to have experience on it. I think we have an alternate seat that Mr. Whitman could fill that could provide the experience that he could bring on, also keep on the experience that Mr. Benson has, and we can move forward to November. Then in November, if the mayor so chose to move or ask Mr. Bensema to step down, then that is what it is. But I think we want to keep the continuance of someone with experience in operations on this, especially when we don't have a superintendent. So what I'd like to see myself is if Mr. Whitman would be amiable to taking the alternate seat and keeping Mr. Bensema where he is on the permanent seat.
I could say that's not what's being proposed, and that's not the motion. Let me say a couple of things. Since you brought it up, I don't want to go into this, but Mr. Bensema has advocated not paying back the town's debt that it owes. He was involved in the oversight of the commission that racked up $4.5 million in debt to the town. And as recently as a couple of weeks ago, was advocating during their budget process that even though the sewer commission agreed to pay the town $1.2 million this year, this budget year, not to pay it. And that has a tremendous impact on the town's finances. And they're budgeted for, he advocated to budget a $450,000 depreciation or capital account while also advocating not to pay back the town. So it's not a matter of, past service. It's a matter of, is this somebody that the town is going to be working with, can work with going forward, or wants to work with me, regardless of whether you agree of me sitting in this chair or not. You have to acknowledge the fact that I am here. And if you can't work with me, you serve at the pleasure of the town council. Nobody's entitled to any position. That goes for Democrats or Republicans. And if there's a need to replace somebody, then that need, our responsibility is to fill that need, and I would advocate doing so. Ms. Lundgren.
I would also like to thank Mr. Bensema for his years of service. We're always appreciative of people that come out and give up their time and energy and expertise to our committees and commissions. But having said that, basically, as a member of the Sewer Commission, you're not expected to, and I know, Pete, you're not a sewer expert, Scott's not a sewer expert, and I think the members are not expected to be a sewer expert about how the plant functions. It's more about the management, and your job is not to worry about the actual function of the plant. I mean, you don't have that expertise. So it's the sewer superintendent, but that's not your job. And your job is to make sure that it's managed properly, that the funding is proper, and as the mayor mentioned, he'd been on the commission for 7 years, and voila, we're $4 million in the hole, and nobody knew about it. So I think it's good to bring on new blood to this commission, and I think Mr. Whitman will do a fine job. He's got good managerial experience, and I think that's what the Sewer Commission needs at this point.
Mr. Bass.
Thank you. I do agree with part of your statement. Another part I would respectfully disagree. And one of them is, for instance, we're looking at as Councilman Chamberlain knows, we're looking at the West Side Pump Station upgrade. That pump station has to be upgraded and replaced. We need someone with experience to help us along with that, as we don't have a superintendent right now. So there's issues when it comes to the life expectancy of some of the plant itself. And you have someone with 7 years experience in the field, I think you'd want to have that person. And to me, it doesn't seem like it would be, if you keep Mr. Bensema on, you wouldn't have Mr. Whitman. He could take the alternate seat. So to me, you have the best of both worlds. To me, it's a win-win situation.
Ms. Richardson.
I think they're facts. The seat is vacated. Mr. Whitman has an excellent resume. And as to what Mr. Looney had stated in his public comment, you can go to a commission meeting anytime you want. So if Mr. Bensema wants to provide his 7 years of experience, he can continue to do that. There's just someone else in his seat managing what Mr. Bensema used to do. At this point, I don't see the sewer commission is dysfunctional. And I don't see a reason why, if you have an opportunity, if the seat is vacated, why you wouldn't make that change. And Mr. Bensema can offer his expertise if he so chose to, if he truly cared about the sewer commission. But I don't see a reason to argue about it any further. There's an opportunity, we can make the decision, and we can move on.
Fair enough. Okay. That being said, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Notice my opposition not to Mr. Whitman, but to Mr. Bensema not being reappointed.
Sure.
And I would say the same.
Sure.
But there is no option then to have an alternate. That's what I was gonna ask you before you called up. If there's no option, then you're not comfortable having, I get what you said, but so there isn't any option to do that for the next few months at all. Then, no, for me.
Fair enough. Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Bass, we voted, so. On this matter or
Yes,
another
just
one?
a quick question.
Sure.
Would you entertain Mr. Bensema taking the alternate seat?
I'd have to interview him, but from what I know from me, I've interacted with him for the past year and a half. We don't speak the same language. We're not even on the same ball field. When I say, here's the rules, he says, those aren't the rules, there's something else. So, no, even as an alternate, why would I appoint somebody who, A, is there to obstruct me? And just got up here at public comment to say, I'm going to do everything in my power to make it difficult for the sewer commission to approve anything at Pettibone. That doesn't endear me to somebody. That's not somebody that I see fulfilling their responsibility as an appointed town official, not elected, appointed. So no, I would not consider him for the alternate position either. Thank you. Okay, next item.
Motion to approve to the Commission on the Arts, Robert M. Ropey, unaffiliated, for the term 6/26/2017 to 11/30/2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I should have also included, I guess we'll have to make another motion.
Sure.
Dylan. Okay, another motion to appoint Dylan Andrew Armstrong, Democrat, to the Commission on the Arts, 6/26/2017 to 11/30/2019.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Just out of curiosity, he's replacing Diana DeBrille.
Yeah.
Yeah, she resigned.
I think that it would be in order to send her a letter of appreciation for the years of service that she's done. Oh, you did that last week?
No.
No.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But because she's done a great job in bringing that commission along, and it is what it is today because of her leadership.
And still very much involved with Gallery 25 at the depot. So absolutely, I agree. Thank you.
Motion to approve the appointment to the as a municipal agent for the LG Palmyra Labasur. Sorry. Sorry, Myra. For 6/26/2017 to 11/30/2021.
Okay. And this is a statutory position. This isn't something that, is required. It's an elector of the town. She was hired in the past year at the senior center. Carolyn's here just to, if you want to explain, Carolyn.
I'll let Myra do it.
Oh, Myra, absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. So I came on about 8 months ago working at the senior center. working as a municipal agent, and it's been my privilege to serve the town of New Milford. It's been wonderful getting to know all of the older adults here in the community, and
Like me.
Sorry, I have to laugh. She just means
Sure,
all
right.
So working with the residents here, I've been able to connect them with resources both on local levels and the state level and federal levels of programs that they're eligible for. And really the goal in mind is to keep them in their homes where they want to be, the homes that they raise their families in. When they talk about New Milford, they're so proud about it. So it's been a wonderful experience so far, and I thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just have one thing to say. I've gotten to know Myra since she came to work at the senior center as one of the old folks. And I think that you fit in perfectly, and you have done a wonderful job with anything I have had anything to do with or seen you do. I think Mary Jane would know this too.
Absolutely.
And I think we're very lucky to have you.
Thank you. And yeah, like I said, this position, this appointment is statutory. We have one already. Leo is the municipal agent, and we could have two, and it's good to have a backup. So that's the purpose of this. Thank you for everything that you do. They do love you. The seniors love you, and it's a lot of fun. And I see you guys really enjoy your job as well.
Absolutely.
And obviously your family does too.
Yes, my family came out to support.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
All right. So any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Myra.
Thank you.
All right. Item 6.
Motion to approve the June 2017 refunds in the amount of $2,683.94, leaving a balance of $4,202.50 in the refund account for the tax collector.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item 7. Pettibone Community Center. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve a disbursement of $155,000 from the Waste Management Fund to pay for lighting required by the Zoning Commission.
Second.
Okay. Second. Okay, discussion. I tried to make this as informative as possible, but just to give some background, we have been working through the project and working through the zoning permit application. It's been a lot of back and forth. I don't know if Kathy is here tonight, actually. She was going to be. All right, well, she had issued a memo. We've got construction work complete. We've installed low voltage wiring and equipment. We've done trenching and installation of a conduit from the building to the utility pole.
Do we have a copy?
Yeah, I thought that it was included. I guess it wasn't. I'm sorry. I can make this available. We've upgraded the electrical service throughout the building, outlets, wiring, the youth agency, parks and rec offices. Installed new programmable controls for the boilers. Wall preparation and painting, youth agency, park and rec offices. Remediated the hallway floor from the park and rec. New carpet in the park and rec. And renovated bathroom to provide handicap accessibility. We've spent $162,000 out of the $225,000 that was originally allocated. And we do have additional things that are going to be required. That'll take us, I know, to the 225 at the end of the day. But we're in good shape. But the lighting requirement that zoning has required is a substantial hurdle. Originally, we thought, and a lot of applications and a lot of applicants are allowed to do work in phases. But the zoning commission is requiring that the lighting in the parking lot be done now before a permit is as a condition for a permit. And her hearing is still open, but this is what we're being told, that this is the main item that zoning is going to require be done. So the estimate is for $155,000. It is significant. But again, it does fall within the purview of waste management like the original appropriation did. And so we're here asking that it be appropriated, and with the expectation that with this work done and agreement that the community center will be completed sooner rather than later. Ms. Francis.
Was mentioned before, but I'm curious. So you you have spent the 162 of the 225 from prior approval.
Yeah.
So can't that 63 be applied to the 155?
Like I said, we've got additional work that's going to be done after this lighting is going to be completed. We want to stripe the lines in the parking lot. That money will be spent within within the building.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah,
And
like
just-
the 155 really is going to be separate outside of the 225.
Okay, and would it be the same contractor? I don't know who it was, but whoever you had in there.
To do the lighting? No, Eversource has their own people, and it's bid out through the state
For
bid.
the outside? I mean, for the 155.
Yeah, that's outside lighting. Yeah, that'll be through Eversource and their contractors that have already gone through the state bid process.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, it is a little out of the normal process for the council to approve spending money on something that hasn't been given a permit yet. So you have an open, you just said tomorrow or whenever the next meeting is.
Sure.
I would probably feel more comfortable voting on adding more money once we know that zoning has really given you everything that you need to take care of.
Yeah, I understand.
It is the process. I was in the planning department, and I do
Sure.
understand the process, and so I'm not trying to be obstructionist to you. I'm not opposed to having a community center. I never said I was.
Sure.
All I ever asked was that we see more about it, but that's then. I'm
Sure.
just being in the minute here. I guess my question to you is why, explain to me why, convince me why we should vote to do this out of our normal process. You're following the process zoning is asking. You're doing what everybody else has to do, and everybody else has to go through that process. I don't mean you, us.
No, listen. So let me address that. We've been waiting to get this done for weeks, for months, and it's always something else when we go back to zoning, and I understand that it is a process, but we've got a lot hanging on this project. Parks and Rec is, their programming is ready to move into this building. They're ready to move their offices and expand their offerings into this building, which would allow the probate court to move into Parks and Rec. And they're waiting to do that, which would allow us to have more space for our town offices and town hall. Youth agency doesn't have internet connection now. They basically have dial-up. So they're waiting to get into this building. And what it is I'm preparing the soil for, the seed at this point. With this appropriation, I can't just, because every time we go back to zoning, it's, get me an updated this or an updated that. If we know that zoning is requiring us to do this lighting plan, and we're fairly confident that we've done everything that they've asked us to do. The plan, this is what it's going to cost. We've met all their questions. We need to get the money in place now so that when they do appropriate it, so that when they do approve it, we can just pull the trigger and get ready to work. I don't have to come back here and waste another 2 weeks, getting ready and trying to find the appropriation and getting people lined up to do the work. Everything is kind of on hold while we wait for this. So.
I understand. I mean, logically, and I don't blame you. But I guess my question is, if you were a contractor and not the mayor, if it wasn't the town, this is something you might have to deal with, or zoning will have to deal with after the fact. Giving somebody the option of going outside of a process is not normally done, and for a very good reason. Not that there is anything wrong with what you want to do, but that you now have other people. I spent a lot of years sitting and planning. People come forward, they don't want to wait either. So I understand that you have people who want to move, but you put that process in play, and it is now in a place that it's very important that they approve it. And I think you realize that. And I think setting the precedent of allowing the town to do something we don't ask builders to do is not a good thing to do.
But let me address that, because if I was a private builder, I wouldn't engage in a project, go before zoning if I didn't have the funding lined up. So I think this is actually part of the process. If zoning is requiring me to do something that's going to cost $155,000, I want to know that I've got that money in place before I agree to do it. Otherwise, how can I go before zoning and say, yeah, we're going to do that, and not know how I'm gonna pay for it.
Zoning doesn't ask if you have the money to pay for it in your contract, or they assume that you do when you get there. The approval is to do the job, not how you pay for it.
Well, I can't do the job.
I just have to say
so
that.
no, I understand, but I think this is the process. If they're requiring me to do something, I gotta know that the money is there for me to do it. Otherwise, what's the point? Why
But
can I go before zoning?
But if you get the okay tomorrow, we have another meeting, it's not, we're never gonna sit here again. That's all I'm getting at. I don't wanna go back and forth with you. As
That's
I said,
fine.
it's a process point that I feel should be adhered to. That's all.
Mr. Bass.
Thank you. Community center, great concept. I wish the public had a little more input. I did have a few questions. Concerning the lighting, how many bids did we
It's a state bid. So we waive the bid because it's Eversource and there's a sole source contractor. It's not the kind of thing that goes out to bid. We rely on the state bid.
Can we get copies of the council? Can you give us copies of that?
Of what? It's the purchasing minutes. We went before purchasing already, so it has been addressed.
I know Mike Zarvis said we needed 4 employees to maintain the building, and you reduced it to 2.
Mike Zarvis wanted 4 employees.
Are there any plans to increase the employees so the building can be properly maintained?
Well, I think it can be properly maintained with 2 employees, and that's what we have budgeted.
I know we've seen and I've heard there's multiple town trucks that have come in and done some labor at John Pettibone.
Sure.
Do you have the man hours that have been spent by the town employees on the date of the project to date?
No, just as I don't have the man hours to maintain town hall or any other building.
Do you have a bid on how much the sidewalks will be and when they'll be installed?
No, we don't have any plans right now to install sidewalks.
How about the landscaping?
Landscaping, we do have a bid for that.
And can you let us know what the bid is for that?
I think we have that budgeted.
And how much was that?
It's within that remaining budget above 162,000.
And how much will it be to widen the driveway? Fire marshal requested that to zoning.
We could do that in-house. It's not going to cost us anything except the cost of some riprap.
And manpower from DPW, I'm assuming?
Yeah, which we pay them.
Did we get that $500,000 grant that we applied for?
I haven't heard anything back.
Did they give you a time as to when you would be hearing back?
No.
Okay. There's going to be floors and carpets that need to be cleaned. Do you know how much that's going to be?
We do have some quotes for that. I believe it was less than $10,000.
And the parking light line striping and signage is to be completed. Did you have a cost on that?
It's worked into our remaining budget.
And there's also library shelving to be installed.
There will be bookcases that we will be installing, yes.
And the shelves that were there prior, did they go to like another place?
They were stripped when the Board of Ed left.
And then, as we know with John Pettibone, there's lots of windows. Do you know who's going to be doing the window maintenance? Is it going to be the employees themselves? We're going to have it subcontracted out?
Excuse me, at this point, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to raise a point of order as to the appropriateness of this line of questioning for the issue before the council at this particular time.
It is a bit outside, the realm of the motion, which was for $155,000 for lights. You're asking more for an update on the project, which I'm happy to give. Mr. Szymanski had asked for a tour of the building. I don't want to give 9 individual tours, so what I can do is schedule a tour for the town council to tour the building over the next couple of weeks, and we could answer a lot of these questions at the place as well, if that'll satisfy you.
I did have one last question then.
Sure.
Concerning the actual procedure. If we're taking this out to the town attorney, if we're taking this out of the land settlement fund, there's pending litigation. So do you recommend that after if this is so approved, that it goes to the Board of Finance? I've discussed this with Randy, and because of the pending litigation, which is, if you go on the judicial website, you can see in a lot of detail what that's about. but I can't comment on what a recommendation from me would be or our office would be because of the pending litigation.
Let me say one thing. Last week we appropriated $200 and some odd thousand for the library modernization. It didn't go to the Board of Finance, and we've made multiple disbursements from the landfill settlement fund in the past months, despite the pending litigation by Mr. Barnes. So I don't see that as an impediment.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. That being said, questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 2 opposed.
And please note my no is not for the project itself, but just we don't have the final costs.
And Mr. Mayor,
I
would
just
you,
would like, and also Stephanie, excuse me, Scott, I'm sorry,
Sure.
I just also please that it isn't what they're doing, I'm not happy about going outside the process. Is a sign going to be included? Sign?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
could we make a note to schedule a time and date for an open call to a council tour of the facility?
Sure, I'll work with everybody's schedule. And on that note, thank you so much for everybody that came out specifically on this issue. It is much appreciated, and we will continue to keep you, the community, updated as well, and hopefully invite you to the Pettibone Community Center sooner rather than later. So thank you very much for that. Got some boring stuff if you want to stick around, but don't feel like you have to. Item 8.
Everybody leaves. Motion to approve the recommendation of the Personnel Code Subcommittee to accept the updated Personnel Code.
Second.
Okay. So, as you know, this was introduced at the last Town Council meeting. It had been worked on by Greg Valero with the Personnel Subcommittee, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to review it and see if they had any questions. I haven't received any, and we'll open it up for discussion. Ms. Lundgren.
I just want to say I want to thank the committee for all their work and Greg Valero. It was, a big project, and I think you came up with a really fine, personnel code at this point, which is very inclusive and updated. So thank you very much.
I'm terrible at thanking people. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Jessica.
I would echo what Mary Jane said, is that it was a very large undertaking, Greg, and as with everything else you've done, you did a very thorough job.
Yeah. Like I said before, this personnel code hadn't been updated comprehensively since the 90s. It's still referred to first selectman in a lot of places. The laws had actually changed. We were required, when Greg got on board, we were requiring, I think, physicals for everybody, and could reject employment based on a physical requirement or something. There was some wild stuff in there. So Greg spent a lot of time reviewing it, and he didn't reinvent the wheel here. A lot of other municipalities, Scott, like you could explain, have done this before, and we took the best of it.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to just point out, just maybe to increase people's comfort level, that we didn't start essentially with a blank sheet of paper. We went around to all the surrounding communities, definitely Danbury, Brookfield, I believe New Fairfield, a variety of other, Bethel. We consulted what they were doing, and they do some very, different things. But essentially, we looked at what was being done, and I would add that all the surrounding communities had updated their codes more recently than we had. So we essentially had the luxury of looking at what they did, taking the best of it, putting it together, and having a document that is both comprehensive but not cumbersome.
And Greg, I don't know if you want to add anything. Yeah, Mr. Wargo.
Yeah, I just want to comment that the original document was 16 pages. The new document is 38 pages. I'm not saying bigger is better, but it seems to me that if you can double the size of the personnel regulations, that there are a lot of areas that are now going to be covered that weren't covered. And when you don't cover things, that's when you can run into a problem when you're dealing with personnel. So the more comprehensive a plan can be, the more contingencies it looks at, the more effective it's going to be. And I commend you, Greg, on the thorough job that you did.
Yeah, thank you. And one thing that I would add is, Scott, Jessica, thank you very much for all the help and the insight that you gave to this. It was a collective effort.
Walt, did you have something to say also?
Yes, but Councilman Wargo stole my thunder.
I'll take it back.
Well, I almost broke my back trying to pick up 38 pages of this document. I remember the days when, as president of the union, I would have to read contracts. Nothing is perfect, but I tell you, this document is darn close as a comprehensive piece of work. I tell you, we're very kind to town employees too. They get 13 paid holidays. I think that is incredible.
It's one of my sales pitches to get him to work here. That's how I got Greg.
As I told Walter, it was almost as good as being a teacher.
Yes!
Yeah.
Yeah. Greg, just one question. I don't have a copy of again, but this is exactly what we saw when we did have the copy, which I didn't bring with me, I don't know, but it's the same thing.
It is the exact
same.
Katie, would you like to?
No, I have one at home, I just.
Great, Lee, thank you very much.
Okay. So we'll leave it at that. If there's no other comments or adulation for Greg and the committee. Let's call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you so much, Greg. Great job. Item 9. We have this under Public Works. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the recommendation from Public Works that the Townsends apply for a right-of-way permit to improve parking on their lot.
Second.
Okay. So you got Public Works memo. I did ask them to go out there, review the situation. Dan, I don't know if you want to add anything to this. It does kind of speak for itself, but if you could just summarize for the record.
The summary is due to the nature of the road that there is not sufficient room in the right of way to add parking without, acquiring property or easements in order to install an additional parking space at the least.
I think we're all sympathetic to the applicant's concerns. One thing I can say is that I don't have any control over parking, but we do have control over enforcement, and that I will, and I have spoken to our police department to ensure that our police department is not used as a means of harassing anybody in town. And I intend to follow up with them regarding any kind of repeat phone calls or complaints against individuals. Anybody else have anything to add? I think with this, the recommendation is that we could work with, the town will work with the applicants to do a curb cut and to expand parking on their property. But the recommendation from Public Works is that given the construction of the road, the size of the road, to allow parking on the road would, I guess, violate the best practices that you guys need to kind of live by. Yes, Ms. Richardson.
Have you spoken to any of the homeowners on the road about doing a curb cut or
We had not spoken to them since the matter came before the town council.
It is a relatively simple process, though. It's not cumbersome. So hopefully I would ask that they just work with our Public Works department. But ultimately, you guys do have to vote, so it's up to you. But I think the recommendation of the Public Works department speaks for itself.
I just have one other question. So the conversation with the police department is if she calls to, about the parking that they're not going to.
I won't get into specifics, but I would say that our police department is not going to allow itself to be used as a tool of harassment for anybody. So they will weigh the substantive matter of the complaint against the alleged violation. Anything else?
I'd just like to say I am very empathetic, with the family about your situation. I've been in this situation before, and it's tough, but we do have to go, according to, the local and the state regulations as far as the road goes, and hopefully that this curb cut will help you out, as a good solution.
So we have a motion to accept the recommendation of Public Works and to reject the appeal from the traffic authority. Was there a second? Second. Okay. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, is that now available for that?
Sure, sure. We could have this, in fact, you could have mine. There. Oh, you got it? Okay, that was item 9. We're up to item 10, Finance Department. Let's entertain a motion and then we'll invite Finance Department.
Motion to approve the request for approval of the year-end adjustments and continued enforced request for fiscal year 2017.
Second.
Okay, these are items, these are labeled in our packet, item 10 and on the back. So we've got the request for the year-end adjustments in item 10. Mr. Palmer, any questions regarding this? It is pretty straightforward. The only thing I would put off on considering is item B, the $450,000 for the Richmond Center project. We could address that in item B. But these are the adjustments. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item B.
Motion to approve $450,000 disbursement from the Waste Management Fund.
We haven't gotten to that yet.
What? What do you want? Oh, we have
The
to
Richmond Center.
The Richmond Center.
Yeah.
We're not up to it?
No. Here's the way it's general discussion and action on a $450,000 disbursement. It could either come from the Waste Management Fund or from a $1 million bond premium that we received when we went out to bonds. And so that's actually what's up for discussion. Use that as a so moved. So moved. Okay. Second.
I just, okay,
Sure.
so the 450,000 needed to complete it is because the bids came in so high?
Yeah, I'll give a little background. So we got a 400 and say some odd, I don't have the exact numbers, excuse me, but it was around $470,000 or $80,000 steep grants from the state to expand the recreational room at the senior center. We went out to bid based on that. The first time we went, everything was well over $1 million. So we took the plans back, worked with our consultants to pare it down, have the town do some work to make it a bit cheaper. Went back out to bid, and the lowest qualified bidder did come back less. Lee, I don't have the exact number, but it was $800 and some odd thousand.
I believe like 784.
Okay.
There was a difference between what we had left in Steve, which was I think around 430, and this is the difference between that and what the low bid came in.
So our original idea, our internal estimate, if you will, was going to be about half of this.
I imagine so.
Yes, okay. So there you go.
Yeah. So we've got this balance between what we've got funded from the steep grant and what is actually going to cost. And now we've got two options to use now. Like I said, the first option is when we went out to bonds, we had a great bond offering, and we actually got from the winning bond applicant a $1.1 million bond premium. Basically, they were going to pay us $1.1 million to allow them to bond that the prior issue. That was the road bonds, Lynn Deming, and bridges. So that's an option. There are two things to look at that. We're all aware of what's going on with the state. If that 1.1 million, it's basically about $1 million, will drop to the surplus bottom line. And it provides a cushion for the town in case the state does cut us drastically going forward, which we don't know. The other option is to use waste management funds. we did research this, you gotta get creative, and this is to expand the recreational room at the senior center. That's what our STEEP grant was based upon. It repeatedly references the recreational use of this project. And so it falls within that waste management statute. We've used waste management for a lot of different things over the past year and a half, from river trail to library. Nothing specifically that would benefit seniors, and I think this would be a nice opportunity to use the funds on a project that would impact senior citizens directly. And we've got it. Like I said, we've got over $11 million, and it's funded. And we're getting $2.7 million in a couple of months in the next year as part of our installment payments.
So the 1.1 that you referenced, what's going to happen with that? That's still going to go to the bottom line?
That'll just go to the bottom line, and it'll be part of our surplus reserves. Mr. Wargo.
I'm in favor of the waste management funds for 2 reasons. One, we've already taken the money we can take out of the waste management fund for this budget. So we really can't tap that fund anymore. The 1.1 million, we can use the whole thing. But if we use 500,000 or 450,000 out of that, we only got 450, and you can't go to the
right.
So it seems to me it's in the best interest to take it out of the waste management fund and retain the 1.1 million for such things as we under budgeted $1.5 million. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
And we were going to sell some property. Maybe we don't sell the property, but we got to come up with some money. We have that. Then we have this issue of the state. We really don't know where the state's going. So any way we can save that $1.1 million as a Band-Aid to cover whatever might be coming up, I would be in favor.
Yes, Mr. Chamberlain.
I would echo Mr. Wargo's sentiments in that regard. My understanding is that we've gotten some missive today on what the governor's default budget may be, but that's a short term and by no means declarative on what's going to be coming ahead. Between the hits we've taken in the budget process on the local and the state level, I think going with waste management funding, particularly since the seniors have, speaking as a councilman and a senior, I think the senior community has been somewhat underserved in the distribution of waste management proceeds.
Well, there's 10,000 people turn 65 every day, Scott, so sooner or later that room is really going to get crowded.
It is.
But, just
so it should be a nice room.
Yeah. Mr. Bass and then Ms.
let's
Lumber.
hurry it up.
I'd just like to hear from Mr. Palmer where he feels we should take the money.
I think consistent with the motion, I think it could come from either source. I agree, I think with some of the comments that are made relative to the waste management fund, because that is available. I think there is a lot of anxiety relative to what's going to happen at the state level. I think with the 1.1 million hitting our essentially fund balance, I think it gives us some protection against that. And if we've already spent it, then we can't go back and spend it again, so to speak. So I think given the kind of uncertainty, if you will, of what's happening at the state level, I think that, again, as long as the expenditure is consistent with the provisions of the enabling legislation, I'm very comfortable with it coming out of the waste management fund.
And town attorney, we're still within the proper verbiage to use the money from there that way?
Yeah, we looked at this ordinance and specifically it speaks to the construction of municipal public recreation facilities, and this, in our view, falls within that. Thank you.
Thank you. With that being said, oh, Ms. Lumber, I'm sorry.
I just want to say that, just to also keep in mind that this STEEP grant will be running out in December.
That's true.
And we need to get moving on this project. They've been
After all
waiting,
this time, right?
Yeah.
waiting a very long time. Their recreation room now is so outdated, it's dowdy, it's not, it is depressing, it's not even exciting to go in there if you have to have a meeting there. So I feel bad for the people that are in there. It's not enough room. They're constantly having to go to the Max or other places to have functions. So it's imperative that we do this for the seniors of New Milford. As somebody else said, they deserve it, and keeping in mind that this grant is going to run out, and we will, if we don't move on it, we're going to lose almost $500,000. So, and I definitely feel that it should come from the Waste Management Fund.
Okay, so with that being said, so I'll entertain a friendly amendment to the motion to disperse $450,000 to complete Richmond Center project from the Waste Management Landfill Settlement Fund.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And on a positive note, the contractor is ready to get started in July or even August. And expected completion, Carolyn, I mean, I think they're on a very short time frame. Within 6 months, they're supposed to be done.
It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah.
We would like to have a little groundbreaking ceremony, so.
Super. Yeah.
Very excited.
We'll let you guys know when we get everything kind of squared away. It's an exciting project. And item 11, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the creation of a 6-month temporary committee to consider and plan for rehabilitation of the Old Boardman Bridge for pedestrian use only and connect parking to the Seacom Meadow Trail. The committee will consist of 5 members and 2 alternates.
Okay. Mr. Morgan.
Just out of curiosity, this commission, committee, whatever, will it have any money?
I'm sure that they're going to come back and ask for money.
I mean, there's certain tests and stuff you need to.
What I'm at, let me give you kind of some background, because a study was, there is some money in there already dedicated towards this. A study was done a couple of years ago and came back with an estimate of it's going to cost over $2 million to rehabilitate this whole bridge. I can't bear to drive past this bridge anymore and see it continue to deteriorate when I know that we don't need to spend $2 million, but we could do some work to just get it so that it's not deteriorating, it's safe to walk across, and the community could use it, and we could, that's one of the grants that we applied for. Yes, Ms. Francis, and then Mr. Chamberlain.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It was a huge proposal, and I'm not sure, I don't remember every single part of it, but I do agree with you. I've wanted very much to have something done with that bridge since I can remember.
Yeah.
And something that would be able to have part of it used, you know, a walkway area, whatever, maybe not the grandiose, make it a little park of itself, unto itself, but I think definitely a committee is a good way to go, and I'd be very happy to volunteer to be on it.
Thank you. Mr. Chamberlain.
Second, everything that my colleague said, and add as an additional note, as somebody who travels past there on a very regular basis, not only is this a historic and aesthetic issue, but it's a personal safety issue.
Yes.
That even though it is patently unsafe to use and to be on, people continue to use it for a variety of illicit purposes, and I think it behooves us from, if nothing else, a liability standpoint, to get this to where it is at least safe for pedestrian traffic.
Yeah, I agree. Mr. Morgan.
I just remember we had this discussion, I don't know how many years ago, when we were deciding whether to do Lover's Leap Bridge or Boardman Bridge. And as memory comes to mind, we decided on Lover's Leap Bridge, although it wasn't the most historic. Boardman Bridge was the most historic bridge. But we went with Lover's Leap because it was so dangerous as far as ill repair that we decided to do that because Boardman Bridge was in better shape.
Yeah.
And 10 or 15 years have passed and it hasn't gotten any better. But the value of Boardman Bridge is it has more historic value than Lover's Leap as far as when it was manufactured and by who. I think it's the last bridge in the state from that foundry.
Miss
And
Owen.
my great-grandfather took the piano that I grew up with off a train at that bridge and put it on the horse-drawn buggy and took it to the house.
We'll have you play a little synthesizer
I
when we
have
open
a
it.
picture of that somewhere.
Did you ride in the buggy?
I feel it's in my DNA to want to keep it.
Absolutely. Miss Lundgren, yes.
And I'd just like to add that, you know, as a member of the Bike and Trail Committee, to have the Boardman Bridge restored and have a beautiful new bike and trail coming all the way eventually, hopefully, from Boardman Bridge down to Veterans Bridge and farther south. It will just be another beautiful addition to the town of New Milford.
Remember
So,
the little white lights on it? I mean, that was.
white lights?
I would love to.
It was, when it
Yeah.
was in better
The
shape.
restaurant,
It had white lights.
the restaurant put them up.
Yeah, and it was just a nice little look. Scott, I'm sure you remember. So, yeah.
So it's so let's appoint a committee, and let's say right now Rob Burkhardt I know has been involved in you know the behind the scenes on a private.
There was, yeah, that was some fundraising.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much is there.
So I'd like to involve him again, and we'll take applications to get on this committee. I'm sure it'll be very popular. So with that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you so much, everybody.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.